Welcome back to the Wannabe Artist podcast. My name is Justin and I am one of your hosts.
I'm Josh. I'm your other host.
Welcome back. How are we doing today?
Doing good. Feeling good. Got a lot of sleep last night.
Oh, I bet you did. I bet you did.
We don't talk about my summer sleep schedule.
You know what, dude? Everyone's on summer break right now. We're
Yeah.
we're just on our own schedules. We're on our own paths. We can do whatever.
Yeah. We're chilling.
Really quickly, I wanted to open up this episode with a conversation about a topic that I've been seeing around recently, just kind of floating around.
Mm.
And that is, do you think that there is too much content floating around right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that's a very layered question, I'd say.
Mhm.
Because I think that there's always too much content. If you're thinking like what you perceive as valuable content, is it what's good in your eyes, or is it what you think is good for the industry or stuff?
I think I mean just generally in pop culture now with film, TV, and movies, I feel like as of recently, there's just been an influx of just content coming from everywhere and just filling the market in ways that we honestly, I don't know, maybe it's just because we're living in this time right now, but it feels like more than ever.
I don't know. I mean, corporations are making this content obviously to make money, and that wouldn't be happening if there wasn't an audience for it. So I think that with everything that is coming out, I guess for one person, it might feel like there's too much content, but when you think of it in the perspective of like, oh, there's still like an audience for this, and there's a separate audience for this,
Mhm.
and those two things might not ever cross over. It's still being fulfilled and being consumed by someone. So in that aspect, I think maybe not,
Hmm. Yeah, because
because
I'm just speaking as someone who film is my medium, and that's where I've like to believe that I'm very well caught up with everything going on. I try to see as many things as I can, but even so, I still feel incredibly overwhelmed at points.
yeah. I mean, I guess there's that sort of natural curiosity to want to experience everything
Yeah.
just because like you want to see what it can bring to the table. But I mean, I don't know. I guess you can think of it like there's too much content because a lot of it is just trash that's just being produced to make money. But at the same time, you can always think like optimistically, like everything is bringing something new and you might not get to all of it. But the fact that there's more than you can ever consume is probably better than there being less than you could ever consume.
I guess you're right. Like, I know, very silly complaint to be like, "Oh my god, there's too much for me to consume," but I'm just talking
Yeah.
generally, like, your experience.
I mean, it'll always be annoying when you see, like, a new season of Big Mouth coming out or something, like but, like, I feel like I'd rather that than, like, just 1 season of a bunch of different shows, 1 season of 5 shows, and that's all you get for the year.
Mm, yeah, because 'cause we're coming off of a really hot season, especially in TV. We have The Boys, The Bear,
Yeah.
House of the Dragon, all these things coming back. We just had Smiling Friends and Invincible a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And it's just it doesn't feel like there's ever an end point. There's just constantly TV. And I
Yeah.
I I wanted to ask you, as someone who I don't know, I feel like you pick and choose a lot more
Yeah.
with the content that interests you. Do you feel overwhelmed? Or is it not a worry that you have?
I guess I'm kinda on and off about it because sometimes I'm like, "Oh, I need to know I need to be in the know of everything,
Yeah.
regardless of if it's good or not." But most of the time, I kinda have the mentality that if something interests me, then I'm sort of meant to watch that thing
Mm,
and that thing only. But if something isn't really piquing my interests at a certain time, I'm sort of just content with not knowing what's
yeah.
going on with that, even if it might change my life or not.
Another question.
Mhm.
Do you feel the same way about music?
Okay, that's a little different. I feel like with music, I kinda approach it like I don't know, because with albums, I feel like you can always pick out, like, at least one good song most of the time, even if you don't like the album as a whole.
Mhm.
So I feel like for that, I definitely feel the pressure of wanting to consume everything just because I wanna also with my own, like, sort of musical aspirations, like, just having more influences coming in from different genres and artists,
Yeah.
I think is a very, very important thing. So to kind of, like, expand your palette like that kinda adds to that pressure, but I think more so with music, I feel pressured to wanna consume everything, but I still mainly hold that mindset of if it interests me, it's gonna come to me, and that's how it's gonna be.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like we're on a similar wavelength with our
Mhm.
respective mediums. Well, I feel like that's a good point to end. Speaking of a lot of content coming at you at once, the film recommendation of this week, which we will be back to talk about in just a second.
Yep.
And we're back to talk about the film recommendation from last week by me, which is the A24 2018 film Under the Silver Lake, directed by David Robert Mitchell. This is his follow up to his previous film, It Follows, a very low budget, kind of 70s throwback horror movie.
Yep.
And this is a very different movie for him to follow that up with. I was not expecting this. For those of you who don't know, Under the Silver Lake is a very strange movie about a young slacker named Sam who meets a mysterious woman, kind of has like a one off encounter with her,
Yeah.
and she disappears the next day, and he embarks on this very surreal quest to
Mhm.
find out where she went.
Yeah. Putting
I've
it
s-
in very simple
yeah, that
terms.
is putting it in the most generous, simple terms. I've seen this film quite a few times by now. I really enjoy it, obviously. What do you think, Joshua?
I saw it for the first time a few days ago, and I also really, really like this movie.
Nice.
Definitely one of my favorites, I think, ever, just based off first watch for me.
Ever.
Yeah, ever.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a lot less movies than you, so
No, that's still cool.
but yeah,
Yeah, I kind of think that this movie is a masterpiece.
I'm gonna have to agree with you.
You're gonna have to
Yeah.
agree with me.
I
Holy
mean,
crap.
I was gonna say this to you, but then I was gonna save it for a discussion, but then you told me that you kinda knew what I was gonna say. But this is one of those movies that feel like that feels so grand that it's like trying to dissect life and like the human experience like
Mhm.
itself. Like it feels like it's tackling like so many different things that sort of make up our world that it's like a lot to handle.
Oh, yeah, especially on first watch, it's gonna be overwhelming because this movie is commenting it's like a satire
Yeah.
on Hollywood, the system itself, and just all these
Mhm.
pieces that surround the industry. It's trying to satirize this detective complex that a lot of very lone souls develop, during their life where they just meander. And
Satirizing conspiracy theorists too.
yeah, conspiracy theories. Yeah, and that just whole mystery box nature of all these unknown things in our world that we wanna try to discover and understand.
Yeah. And I think something this movie does that's really sort of genius is that it's tackling all these really big themes, but it doesn't lose its relatability. Like it still feels like a very personal and human story being told. And you can feel the director's vision very clearly, like to a very personal level, while still handling like all these huge topics that feel almost larger than one person.
Oh, yeah, because it's grounded with this main character,
Mhm.
Sam,
Yeah.
who is played by Andrew Garfield, and
I'm just gonna say this really like solidified Andrew Garfield for me as like a really good actor because I've only seen him in like Spider-Man and like his role in The Social Network
yeah.
before this. But yeah, he proved that he could carry a movie, especially a movie like this.
Oh, yeah, this is easily my favorite role from him. I think he's amazing. Like I mentioned, this is tackling the detective kind of storyline. Sam, he's essentially serving as the noir protagonist that you find in a lot of these,
Yeah,
um, mystery movies.
which is it's very very I guess you're not really mischaracterizing him, but it's kind of misleading to call him a detective because the way he's
Oh,
characterized
yeah,
in this
yeah.
movie, like he's this creepy, paranoid womanizing sort of bum.
Yeah, he's
He's going
Maybe that was the bad way to describe it, but he's serving as, like, a parody of
yeah,
that kinda character
yeah,
that you would see in, like, something like Chinatown.
mhm,
Yeah, he's a womanizer, he's deranged, and just the core plot of this movie,
mhm.
he's obsessive, like, he's going on this quest to find this girl who he had one encounter with.
One simple
Yeah.
interaction with. And I don't know, I think the movie does a really good job at sort of depicting how he's sort of given up on life
Oh, yeah.
and setting up his journey to find purpose
Yeah.
throughout the whole film because he's in such a rut and at such a low point.
Yeah, this guy, he is an absolute bum, like, slacker was a nice way to describe him because he sits around, he complains about his mediocre ass life, and believes at many points in the film out loud says, "Oh, I should have been someone successful who changed the world," but then he does nothing about it.
I know.
Yeah.
And he spends his day just on his balcony spying on women with his
Smoking
binoculars,
cigarettes, yeah.
which I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's gross, and it's almost a commentary it is a commentary on real life because there's so many of these people who think their success is gonna come at them, and it's not something they have to chase and, like,
Yeah.
actually
They
work
feel like
towards.
they're sorta owed something
Yeah.
for no reason at all because they haven't put in really anything to deserve it.
Mhm.
But yeah.
I guess that's just addressing the central character. Like we mentioned before, this movie is commenting on the industry and film, I guess, itself.
Yeah.
It's saying a lot of things, but the main thing that I get from it is
Mhm.
that it's saying all this art, all this media, it's kind of constructed to distract us from what's really important in our life.
Yeah. Okay, I kinda understand why you kinda started with that question because it kinda ties into this.
Mhm.
But, yeah, this view of media as a sort of distraction from the real things in life, I think that's a very ironic sort of statement to make. I definitely think it's purposely hypocritical because
Yeah.
this in itself is a film. And I think this hypocrisy also extends to the symbolism of dogs
Mhm.
and how dogs are sort of representing the view of women and their sort of objectification in both Hollywood and through the eyes of our main character, Sam.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this is something really interesting because it's using dogs to show the objectification of women, but that sort of symbolism in itself is objectifying in a certain way. So I think this is another thing sort of acknowledging the movie's hypocritical nature and its satirical sort of lens.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It can be seen as hypocritical,
Mhm.
but it has that self-awareness
Yeah,
where it knows that what it's commenting on can be thrown back at it,
yeah,
but it's very smart with how it does it.
yeah, and it's so much of, like, a mind fuck too, to sorta, like, use this, like, kinda logic to call out the movie's hypocritical nature,
Mhm.
but, like, I think it works because the whole movie is about sorta questioning everything
Yeah.
and questioning, like, everything that's put in place in the systems and all that.
Yeah, and that's why I think the commentary is so good because we're doing the exact same thing that Sam does.
Mhm.
We're deconstructing the movie, and, I know this is a very jumbled conversation, we'll get back into it, but we're doing exactly, yeah, what he's doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, getting way too deep into it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say, like, finding meaning in nothing, but finding just scratching doing anything to find something tangible in everything.
Yeah. Before we dive too deep in the movie, I wanna kinda talk about the just reception of it,
Oh, okay.
because I don't know if you know, this movie has a very mixed reception. It's not very critically well received.
Really?
Yeah, it has a 6.5 on IMDb
Mhm.
and a 58% score on Rotten Tomatoes, 59% audience score.
Okay, I mean, the audience score doesn't really surprise me. This is not a crowd-pleasing movie for
Yeah.
sure. It takes its time, it's weird, it seems pointless throughout its runtime if you're not really thinking. and if you're just, like, taking everything at face value, it can seem very pointless. But I'm surprised that it has such a low critic score, because I feel like this is a movie that does a lot of the things right that I think
Mhm.
critics that I would assume critics would enjoy.
Yeah. Honestly, I wasn't too surprised that
Mm,
the reception is so mixed.
mhm.
Like you mentioned, it's really not for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess a movie like this that's so sorta out there
Mhm.
and isn't really showing anything on its surface, I think a lot of people can just perceive it as dumb and sort of pretentious because of
Yeah.
that. Because I guess it's harder to really connect with a film
Yeah.
for some people. It's the difference between what kind of a viewer you are. Because I think for me personally, I connect with things that aren't so obviously on the surface and
Mhm.
obviously have meaning outside of what it's showing on the surface. But certain people connect with stories that are more sorta in your face. And
Yeah, that will kind of spoon feed you the answers.
I mean, not even spoon feed you the answers. I guess
I'd say spoon fed. A lot of people do not want any kind
okay,
of
I guess
mystery.
I'm trying to give people credit so I don't sound as, like, snooty, uptight, but, like
Nah, dude, fuck those people. Like side tangent, but this is seriously a problem. People just want all their art to be catered towards them, and that's just not how it works.
I mean, it can go too far though,
Yeah,
like modern art, like
I guess, but
contemporary art.
that's another reason why I think this movie is so genius because it's aware of how it's gonna be received
Yeah.
by presenting there's so many people in this world of Under the Silver Lake
Mhm.
who passively look at art
Yeah.
and kind of ignore it and just say, "Oh, it's there, it's surrounding us, but it's not really
Yeah.
meaning to me
And
meaning much to me."
I guess the main characters sort of delve into what all this art actually means and sort of going insane over the fact that there's hidden messages. I guess that in itself is a commentary on how the movie is gonna be perceived by different people,
Oh, yeah.
different kinds of ears.
Yeah, because we funny enough, we watched this with our mother as well,
Mm,
and
obviously.
yeah,
It's rough.
she was experiencing some of it,
Yeah.
but although she did not enjoy it as much of it as much as us, I think it's totally valid that she had a much more passive experience because
It's not an easy watch,
yeah.
especially on first time viewing. It's very dense, but it's also really hard, especially at first, to see what the movie is trying to do and where it's going.
Mhm. Yeah, I think both ways that you will experience it are valid, and I don't
Mhm,
think that the way it presents itself is like this mirror or sorry, not mirror, like this shield from criticism.
mhm.
I think it's just saying that, not everyone's gonna connect with it, and, that's the biggest part of art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that there's differing opinions and that everyone's gonna perceive it differently.
Well, I think we should dig into the actual plot of this movie.
Yeah.
As mentioned, this is very much a noir detectives kind of story
Mhm.
at its core, but
Yeah.
I think it's truly a character study about someone who is mentally deranged
Mhm.
and losing their sense of reality.
Yeah.
Because, as you'll see throughout the film, it's clear that this character,
It's not completely
yeah, there,
he's a little silly.
he's a little silly in the stuff that he does.
Yeah.
So, opening up the film, we're introduced to Sam, and we kind of see his day to day life. He meets Sarah and spends a brief night with her. And then the next day, he realizes she's completely vanished,
Yeah.
and he notices a symbol. And this kind of is what is the catalyst that starts his journey to find
Yeah.
her.
I wanna make note of a sort of interaction they have, their first interaction where
Hmm.
he gives, Sarah's dog these dog biscuits that he has,
Oh, yeah.
and I think that's something really good that this movie does is sort of plant these seeds and just sorta expand on it later in the movie
Hmm.
because they never explain, like, why he has these dog biscuits, and honestly, it's not something you would even think would be at all important to the themes or the story at all, but then
Hmm.
it comes back later. And I think that's just something really cool that this movie does because it has a mystery these sort of mystery elements within its mystery.
Yeah, from the
Story.
very opening, it opens on a shot of glass that's
Mhm.
been tagged with "Beware the dog
Oh,
killer."
yeah.
And from the very opening, there's this focus on dogs.
Yeah.
This city, LA,
Mhm.
that's been plagued by these dog murders.
Mhm. Yeah.
And without like, okay, obviously it opens with it, but without
Sure.
spelling it out for you, there's a focus on
Yeah.
pets
Yeah.
and like our relation to specifically dogs.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
underlying. Yeah, moving on, he investigates the next day and sees a girl retrieving one of her boxes.
Mhm.
He decides to tail this girl onto a lake area where you can kind of like rent boats, and he sees a pirate retrieving the box from these girls.
Which is a very silly moment in the movie.
Oh yeah,
This pirate is my favorite character.
he's your favorite character. Yeah, he pops up every once in a while. You'll just kind of see him,
Uh-huh. The
and
score will get
yeah, it'll be
crazy
a
dramatic,
his appearances will be accompanied by the most intense score.
which is another thing. I think the score of this movie is very, very interesting because it's very old sounding,
Mhm,
definitely parodying like old like noir scores from back in the day. And I just think it contrasts like really well with the sort of modern feel that the movie has.
mhm.
'Cause it's definitely taking place in a more recent time because they have, like, drones and stuff and MacBooks,
Oh yeah.
and they obviously, like, the camera work is, like, very modern day, but when you have this sorta old sounding score, I don't know, it's a weird vibe because it kinda, like, clashes in a good way.
Mhm. Yeah, because that's one of my favorite things. It's feels like it's trapped in an era
Mhm,
while still being set in modern day.
and I think that aids the surreal nature of the movie, and it makes it less jarring when weird, unrealistic things happen because you already have this sense of uneasiness that this world isn't it's close to our real world, but it isn't exactly like 100% right.
Yeah, like, it doesn't feel like it's coming out of left field. It feels within the universe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah.
Continuing on, he meets with a writer who writes a magazine about LA, specifically the Silver Lake,
Mhm.
and this is
Under the
yeah,
Silver Lake.
it's literally called Under the Silver Lake.
Mhm.
Title drop. And this is where he learns more about subliminal messages and codes that are
Mhm.
hidden all throughout advertisement, pop culture,
Mhm. Yeah,
and products around.
yeah, and this is when he reads the magazine, right?
Yeah.
In the movie, so this is it's a sorta like infographic on the dog killer.
Mhm.
And the whole, I guess, theme of the I think it's a what are those called? A zine. The whole theme of, like, the zine is sort of, like, these weird occurrences happening
Mhm.
in Silver Lake. I thought that was really interesting how there's this sorta, like, supernatural aspect to this world,
Yeah.
or at least the way it's presented in the zine, and there's, like, a really cool, like, animated sequence too to sorta
Oh, yeah.
depict it in the style of the comic book, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, we have another mystery box being set up, which is the Owl's Kiss,
Mhm.
which is this womanly figure who has an owl head
Yeah.
that sneaks into the home of men, seduces them, and then murders them.
Yeah.
So that's yeah, it's setting up another plot line.
Yeah. And this is something the movie does really well is sort of build its world almost like a video game.
Yeah.
I feels like because it has all these like different locations and set pieces that the character journeys through, but it also has these like literal like infographics and cutscenes
Yeah.
that explain like, oh, there's this weird monster that's roaming around the world that's like killing people.
Yeah, it's like if in a video game you went up to the NPCs and you started reading and talking to them.
Yeah, and then a cutscene just
Yeah,
sort of sinks in.
exactly.
It's really seamless in the movie too, which I think there's something about animated sequences in live action movies that sorta pull me out sometimes.
Yeah.
One I can remember off the top of my head is Krampus.
Wow,
I don't
deep
know
cut.
I don't know if you remember, but there's a scene where this grandma's, like, explaining her backstory with Krampus, and it just becomes, like, animated
Mhm.
all of a sudden, and it looks good, but it's, like it's jarring when the tone isn't right. and where
Yeah, a lot of the time when movies do that, it feels so cheap, and it's just like either they're cutting a cost or they just think they can get more style out of this choice to go
yeah,
animated. But
I
in the case of Silver Lake, it works.
yeah. Yeah, I also think, like, tone is really important for that because Krampus is like a horror comedy.
That's
Since
such a
how
random
yeah. But for this,
comparison.
since this movie is already kind of insane, like, I think it works really well.
Yeah. And before we forget, I want to mention that this author is played by Patrick Fischler, who is also in Mulholland Drive, which is definitely an inspiration for this movie. This movie clearly, to any David Lynch fan,
Yeah,
they would recognize.
I've seen that comparison a lot,
Yeah,
that it's I haven't seen a single David Lynch movie, but I can
yeah.
already get an idea just from
It's been a while since I've seen Mulholland Drive, but it's so apparent to me. It's tackling the same kind of Hollywood commentary.
is that also sort of like a mystery too?
Yeah, it's very surreal like this movie.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a fun little almost nod.
Yeah,
Yeah. Whether intentional or not that he was in here.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was good. Yeah, my favorite line.
Oh yeah, he's a great line.
It's almost as common as tits and hamburgers.
Yes.
I know it off the top of my head. It's implanted in my brain.
Yeah, Sam saying, "What if there are messages that aren't subliminal? What if they're meant for certain people?" That's as common as tits and hamburgers.
Th that was so weird when I was watching the movie because I heard that line and I didn't think anything, and then the next scene just played, I was like, "Wait, that" it didn't make sense at first because I was like, "Wait, that's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard." But then you really think about it, he's like, "Oh, okay, it's as common as, like, fast food and sex," or
Yes.
so
There are so many things that happen in this movie
mhm,
that you kind of have to backtrack and think back a little bit
yeah,
like, did that just really happen?
yeah.
Yeah. Moving forward,
Mhm,
he attends a movie screening and meets some actresses at a park.
mhm,
And as the actresses are leaving, actually, before we get to that,
mhm.
one of the actresses, she's pretty famous now, Sydney Sweeney.
Which was a big surprise to me when I saw
Yeah.
that.
Honestly, I forget that she's in this movie a lot. And whenever she comes up, I'm like, holy shit.
I don't know if this is a fair criticism, but I feel like she kinda dates this movie, not, like, as being old, but, like, being too close to our, like, modern day. I don't know,
I see what you mean.
'cause, like, when I see Sydney Sweeney, I just think of Euphoria, and then when I think of Euphoria, I just think of Gen Z,
Yeah.
and this movie felt very detached from that sort of culture until she showed up. Nothing against her, I mean, it's not her fault.
Or this movie's fault because we didn't know she
Oh,
would
yeah,
be
that's
such
true.
a cultural figure, I
So
guess.
wait, when was Euphoria? That was 2020, right?
2019.
2019? Okay, but this was, like, also 2019. So around the same time,
Yeah.
but still, it's still before, right? Around the
A little bit after.
oh, okay, okay.
So this makes our second project that we're talking about, Sydney Sweeney. Which is
Okay,
really
another
fun.
thing relating to Madam Web with this movie is the camera work.
Oh, yeah.
The camera work is very lively and has a lot of personality to it, like Madam Web.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much personality in the way it's shot. There's a amazing shot where he notices them leaving and
Yeah.
they're picked up by that same pirates. And there's a shot where it's his reaction, Sam's
Mhm.
reaction to it,
Yeah.
and he's kind of like green screened onto
It's
the
weird.
theater screen in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like
It's a super, like, dramatic, like, close up to his
yeah,
face.
and it's like it feels
And the
almost like
music is, like is swelled up, like, it's at, like, its peak.
it feels like Disney Channel esque,
Yeah.
where it's like it's so chaotic and nuts for no reason.
'Cause it happens so fast too, like, they get in the car, you see the pirate, and it
Yeah,
zooms in on his face, and that was another moment that sorta, like I had to take a moment to sort of process it, and then I just started laughing
yeah,
'cause it just yeah, this movie this movie sort of juggles a lot of different tones.
yeah. So he follows these
Mm,
girls to a secret party,
yeah.
and
Oh, wait, hold on, I need a pee. So
you
I'm
need to
just
pee. Sure.
be right back. Dude, I was holding that in for so long, I thought I was gonna die.
That's
Are
hilarious.
you still recording?
Yeah,
Okay, keep that in.
moving on. See,
Moving
this
on.
is what this movie does to you. We get so sidetracked because there's a million things happening at once.
I
It's
know.
like it's intentional, and I love that about it.
Yeah.
He goes to a party that's on a rooftop
Mhm.
pool.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
This is before
encounters these
yeah,
actresses.
the
Anyway,
actresses, yeah.
he kind of spies and then follows this girl into a bathroom,
Mhm.
and obviously the
This is the
girl,
girl with the box.
yes, this girl retaliates, kicks him in the nuts, and then
Mhm.
another group of girls comes in and they start chewing him out a little bit, and then it kind of devolves into them
Just barking.
aggressively barking at Sam while he's on the ground.
Which, I mean, I think just further sort of solidifies the symbolism of or the connection between dogs and women in this movie.
Yeah, how he views them.
Yeah, because it's a valid thing to be angry at you for being in the ladies' restroom. Then to sort of drown it out and like perceive it as just dogs barking, I think is a really clever way to show his sort of what's the word? Like not acknowledgement of
Their place
their
in
yeah,
society.
yeah, and of their anger too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by this point, you could literally take it as them barking
Yeah.
because it hasn't really jumped off the deep end.
Mhm.
That's funny because that's a pool party. It hasn't jumped off the deep end to the point where these absurd things that are happening could be real or could not be.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's like some still tangibility to it.
Yeah. Oh, and at this party, oh, we forgot about this. There's this guy, this
Yeah,
high
his little
rich guy.
friend. Oh, which guy?
Okay, this is like going back to the beginning. There's the high rich guy. I forgot his name.
Oh my
Who
god.
died in
Yeah.
who died in the car crash. Who died in a car crash,
Yes.
and presumably Sarah was in that car.
Yes, yes.
Yes. And then at this party where he's getting barked at the same party, the daughter of that guy.
Millicent Sevens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The daughter is here and she is informed of her father's death.
Yeah.
Basically.
And she's a little absent from the movie. We'll get back to her later.
Yeah.
At this party, he meets with a friend known as Alan, I believe, who's just kind of like him,
Yeah.
where he doesn't really have a job. Yeah, he's a bum. He just kind of jumps around and they run into each other every once in a while.
Yeah.
And they're both invited to a secret show the next night, and they receive a cookie invitation that they are not allowed to eat.
Yeah, but I think while they're sort of in the same place, I think his friend Alan sort of represents someone who's been fully complacent, whilst Sam is embarking on this journey to sort of break out of this and find purpose.
Oh yeah.
So,
He has a really great line where he acknowledges that they're swimming on a rooftop when there's an ocean very close by.
oh yeah.
Yeah, it's clear that he's very complacent
Mhm.
in just the world that's been created, and he's just kind of going
His
along for
place
it.
in it too.
Yeah.
He's sort of just like, I'm just gonna be a bum who goes party to party.
Yeah, he's like, "You know what? I'm just gonna have fun with it. Fuck it. I'm that guy
I mean,
going
he's
to all the
literally
parties."
wearing a woman's blouse. Like, he
Oh,
does
yeah,
not
that's
give a
right.
fuck.
Yeah, he doesn't care about what he looks like.
Mhm.
He's invited to another party
Yeah.
where
This is after clarify, this is after everything, and then actresses, pirate, crazy
yes,
shot, invited to another party
yes, and he is invited to a secret show.
for one of the, I guess, background singers or
Yes,
band members of the band
this recurring band, yeah,
Jesus and the
the Brides of Dracula.
Rats of Dracula.
Yeah,
That's it.
and at this secret party show, he meets a balloon girl, and they kind of have a chat about the life of being a celebrity and in this industry.
Yeah.
She explains that she's not really aware of this kind of conspiracy nature
Mhm.
that Sam's so invested in, and she's just saying, we have our music, we have our bodies,
Yeah.
we're just gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, we can just enjoy life,
Yeah.
party.
Yeah. And of course, Sam, he's not really convinced by that,
Mm.
but he'll go along with it for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's very, very paranoid still at
Yeah.
this point.
And they drink, they dance, and because Sam ate the entire cookie invitation, he gets very high,
Yeah, and he yanks it all up,
yaks it all up, and
which was disgusting. They show, like, the actual throw up in the toilet.
yeah,
Not the first time they're gonna do something like
yeah,
this.
this movie loves to show like bowel movements and, like, liquids that come out from your body.
Don't
Yeah.
eat while watching this.
Yeah, don't eat while watching this. Anyway, he notices that same girl who stole the box
Mhm.
out of Sarah's apartment, and he chases her down and passes out, but then wakes up in a graveyard.
And the gravestone he's next to is
Oh, shit, that's right.
actress, I forgot her name. She's an old actress.
Yeah, who his
It's
mom is really obsessed with.
and is talking he had an earlier conversation with her about this movie that she watched
Mhm.
with her in it,
Yeah.
and that's sort of something that's just his mom's an interesting character in this because you never see her face, you just hear her voice.
Mhm.
But she has this very, like, overly optimistic tone about her.
Mhm.
It sounds almost like a joke, like she's sort of making fun of him sometimes because she's
Yeah.
so like, "Oh my gosh," like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But she's just kinda this recurring character that calls him every once in a while, only really to talk about this movie that she's obsessed with and this actress.
Yeah, and these, like, old classic films that she likes, and you can almost see him putting on, like, a performance every time he picks up the phone.
Yeah, I mean, literally the first time he's, like, spying on woman while at the same time talking to
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing, he'll constantly be asked about his job
Mhm.
and, like, what he's doing with his life, and he'll kind of shrug it off,
Yeah.
and it's just a constant reoccurring.
Yeah, I mean, it's just showing that he's
Yeah.
still in a state where he's not trying to fix his problems, he's trying to run away from them.
Yeah, because at the same time, he's dodging paying his rent.
Yeah,
Like, he's about to be evicted from his apartment, but he
yeah.
doesn't do anything about it.
And another thing about this movie that feels like a video game, like the timer that's sort of put on his journey because of his rent, I feel like
Oh, yeah.
that's sort of reminiscent of Majora's Mask, the Zelda game. How there's a
True.
timer in that game with like the moon that's gonna crash down. I just thought that was another cool thing that makes this movie feel even more like a video game to me.
That's actually a good comparison that we brought up. We'll get more into that later because quite literally, he does some video gamey things.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I forgot about that.
Okay, but getting back,
Mhm.
he begins analyzing this hit song known as "Turning Teeth" by the mentioned band Jesus and the Brides of Dracula,
Yeah.
and as a way to, I guess, heighten it, he pulls out a bunch of magazines and
He has
starts
his whole collection
yeah,
just brought out on the table.
and he starts masturbating at the same time.
While trying to, I guess, get inspiration, creative inspiration to find the hidden message. I thought it was very funny to see him just glancing at all the different things on his
Yeah,
desk.
because he has, like, a
Um,
he mentions earlier this magazine of this
mhm.
swimsuit model,
Yeah.
and he talks about how that's the first thing he's ever masturbated to.
Yeah.
He he lies that out next to, like, a collection of zines and a picture of Sarah,
Yeah.
which is really funny. And during this little session wait, is this in the same section?
This
Oh,
is
no,
later.
he kinda pauses, he gets sidetracked.
'Cause in the magazine, he sees
Yes,
this
yes.
advertisement for the actresses, like a hookup service for the actresses
Yeah, yeah.
and a number to call. So, because of what he saw with the pirate,
Mhm.
he's using this as another sorta lead to find out what's going on.
That's right. And, of course, it's presumed, yeah, he definitely had sex with her. She tells him about this famous songwriter who lives in a local mansion who will come up later,
Mhm.
and he continues his little deconstruction of the music and discovers a hidden code within the lyrics as he's counting the syllables?
He counts how long the letters are,
Okay.
and then he sorta, like, extrapolates that to, I think, the lyrics
Yeah.
or some text on the other side of the page. It's really weird. And then he uses the number of letters in that word to correspond to the letter number in the other word.
Holy
Like
shit.
like, it was like so say, like, the word "run" has 3 letters in it, and then on the other side, there's the word, like, "count." So you
Yeah.
count 1, 2, 3, and then your letter is "U." Like, it's that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was hoping you would understand the, like, musical connection better.
I mean, that's not music, that was more
Not music, but, like, in relation to the lyrics.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I was just, like, into that because like, that kinda stuff, like, is in movies, is just, like, so cool to watch.
Yeah.
And that's what I really like about this movie too, is that it still has a lot of the really compelling elements of a mystery.
Oh, yeah,
Like, you
like,
see the
it feels genuine.
yeah, you see the process of him solving this mystery, even though it's in such a weird context,
Yeah.
it still works really well and is a really good part of the movie to sorta, I guess, bring in people or keep people that aren't super into this kind of thing to keep them sort of captivated and interested in the story.
Yeah, it grounds it, and it also gives more credit to Sam,
Oh,
that he's not just an incompetent bum. I mean, he
because
is a
he's
bum.
actually applying himself
Yeah, exactly.
for, like, the first time we've seen in this movie, and obviously it's for some ridiculous conspiracy, but it's still something that he's applying himself and not being a complete bum.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
he
the code that he finds,
yeah,
reads, "Rub Dean's head and wait under Newton," and he kind of takes a second running through what that could possibly mean, and
yeah,
this leads him to the Griffith Observatory.
and he follows the instructions
Yeah.
with the statue and everything, and out comes the homeless king.
Yes, another reoccurring character
Mhm.
who kinda leads him to a bunker.
A secret part of the map.
Yeah, a secret
Mhm.
part of the map that he's unlocked,
Yeah.
and he kinda looks through this bunker, but realizes it just leads to a grocery store, like, the inside.
And he thinks it's a bomb shelter,
Yeah,
for now.
yeah, and he picks up some milk, drinks it because that's what kind of an asshole he is.
Might as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Homeless King, interesting character. This movie also delves into homelessness a lot.
Oh, yeah.
We get like the introduction to this sort of language they have
Mhm, the hobo
regarding,
codes.
yeah, regarding symbols that only homeless people sort of know. And this is introduced to him by the conspiracy theorists that writes Under the Silver Lake, the comic. But yeah, it's interesting that this character is homeless,
Mhm.
knowing the role that he plays and what we're gonna discover, like, how important he is to the whole mystery.
Yeah, and this is another recurring thing, like Sam being asked about his job.
Mhm.
He's constantly talking about homelessness and
He doesn't wanna be homeless
yeah,
because he reveals later that he hates the homeless.
yeah. And the kinda guy who runs the apartments compares him to, like, a hobo,
Yeah,
and you can clearly see on his face he's not
it's
entertained by
not
that
how he
way.
wants to
Yeah,
be
he doesn't
perceived,
wanna
yeah.
be looked at in that way.
Which I guess could be another motivation for his sort of journey in this movie.
Yeah,
Maybe he sort of feels like if he cracks the code to this, he won't be perceived as that anymore or
yeah,
something like that. Like, he'll be some sort of hero.
yeah, like, this is what he's been looking for. It'll
This
give
is
him
his
his
purpose
purpose.
in
Yeah,
life, what's gonna make him important.
yeah.
Yeah.
Following that, he heads back to the author's home, and this is where he learns that the author killed himself,
Supposedly.
supposedly. Yeah, and I wanted to mention the way that the author is placed into the story
Mhm.
is at the perfect time because it almost makes Sam seem more
Yes.
stable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
seeing this nut job.
I think it's also like, sort of what's the right word for it? It kinda eases us into his downward spiral because you have someone that's so into it compared to where Sam's at,
Yeah.
who's, like, just on the surface of this conspiracy. The author kinda makes, yeah, like you said, makes him look better by comparison.
Mhm.
But when Sam eventually reaches the point that the author's at, it's such a natural progression, and we already have this view of Sam that he's better than that we don't even realize that he's also gone off the deep end by the
Yeah.
end of this movie.
Because you can assume by that logic that the author has had a similar progression
Mm,
to get to this point in his life where he's so obsessive with all these mysteries in this LA region.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he supposedly has killed himself.
Hmm. Sam breaks into his home and he retrieves a cereal box that contains, one of those little toy prizes, but it is a map
Yeah,
that's like the author mentioned geographically to scale with with
the
LA.
whole area, yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, so but then he also checks the cameras
Oh,
because the
that's right.
author
Yeah.
originally had he was a nut job, so he was very paranoid. He had a bunch of cameras basically saying, like, I know who comes in, who comes out.
Yeah.
And so Sam checks these cameras because he's very suspicious of this supposed suicide, especially because
Mhm.
what's left of the crime scene does not look like a suicide, it looks like a murder.
Yeah.
So he checks the cameras and he sees
The owl's
the
kiss.
owl's kiss walk up into the home, and I mean we can all assume that she kills him. And
Oh, yeah.
that basically just explains the true cause of his death.
Mhm.
And I guess this is a very vital moment for Sam's progression because it definitely lowered his trust in this, like, destroyed his trust in the system because the police are so obviously trying to cover it up
Yeah.
now that he knows the truth. And yeah, I guess also since he doesn't have that sort of nut job to keep him grounded, he's completely on his own now,
Mhm.
and there's nothing really to keep him.
He doesn't have his Yoda, his mentor.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has a really great line earlier where he's kind of showing him this collection of, like, I forgot what you would call it, those, like, little face masks
Oh, yeah,
of,
of
like,
celebrity
celebrities
stuff, yeah.
and presidents, and he's like, "Damn, I need to get a family. Who am I gonna leave this all to?" And it's like, "Yeah, dude.
That is
Yeah."
all you care about. But yeah. I don't know, you know the story structure of the hero's journey, right?
Oh, yeah.
Of
Oh,
book
yeah,
one.
I wanted to bring that up too,
Yeah,
yeah.
so, I mean, I don't know how much this movie sort of follows that, but, I mean, the death of the author
Mm.
definitely feels, like, fitting as, like, representative of, like, the death of a mentor in a very
Yeah.
in a very, strange way, like this movie likes to do.
Yeah, because I don't know if you can tell at this point, Sam is very an atypical hero
Yeah,
in the hero's journey quest.
yeah.
Yeah.
But he's still following sort of
Mhm.
the same outline of a journey.
Mhm.
Okay.
After leaving the house with the map, he calls his friend again, Alan, and he learns about a chess party that a rich person likes to throw. At this chess party, he kind of sits around and he finds the lead singer, Jesus, and kind of interrogates him.
For information on his song that he was decoding, so
Yes,
it's
and this
turned
is, like we mentioned before, a famous or infamous poopy scene.
God.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's taking a shit, and Sam kinda just ambushes him, and he beats him up, pulls him off the toilet and beats him up, and we get a very nice shot of his disgusting, like, genuinely horrendous shit. Like,
Yeah.
um, what was it the other movie? Oh, yeah. I Saw the Devil, Korean movie. That's another movie with a really gross poopy scene, but I don't think that even compares to this. Because
Yeah.
dude, this guy took a disgusting shit, like
Yeah, I said to Joshua, if your shit ever looks like this, like, you need to see a doctor. Like, it is so strange the way it's looking and the way it discolors the
it's
water.
watery and dark, but I guess that's just a rock star shit, you
Yeah,
know?
before
Anyways.
before we get in on dissecting poop, let's keep going.
Okay, okay.
He learns by interrogating Jesus that a lot of their hit songs were not actually
All
written by the
hit
band.
songs.
All yeah, all of their hit songs were not written by the band.
Mhm.
They were written by this
The
previously
song,
mentioned, yeah,
yeah.
famous songwriter,
Songwriter mentioned by the actress
the
who
actress.
supposedly threw this amazing party.
Yes.
So, yeah, and he's told this guy Jesus is told that they weren't written, but he was just forced to sorta perform them and release them
Yeah,
and not to ask questions on
yeah. Another example of, like, someone being silenced.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's so weird because he's sort of built up as this, like, figure that's playing into the puzzle,
Mhm.
but in reality, he's even more in the dark than Sam. He's
Yeah.
just sort of like a pawn in this whole puzzle.
Yeah, he's literally just a puppet who performs and plays for them
Yeah.
to fit their narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another video game manner, he talks to the actresses again, and they guide him
Mhm.
to the songwriter's mansion.
Yeah.
And this is where he sneaks into the mansion and meets the infamous songwriter.
Songwriter.
Yes.
And this is a very interesting sequence. It almost feels like kind of like a boss battle,
Yeah.
like the video
Yeah.
game comparisons. But yeah, he meets the songwriter, and he's basically told that by the songwriter that basically every hit song from the past few decades
Mhm.
was written by him on his piano,
Yeah.
and it's just been sort of dished out to different artists, be perceived as what's popular right now,
Mhm.
and to sort of control pop culture
Yeah,
at the
it's
time.
he's, like, the mastermind behind
Yeah.
everything.
And I thought this was honestly like a very disturbing sort of revelation to come to.
Yeah.
I don't know, especially what really got me was when he started playing Smells Like Teen Spirit,
Yeah.
because I mean the whole grunge movement and Nirvana itself is like, especially that song is such an anthem for just rebellion at that time. And I feel like that's such an important point in music for a song that heavy to be so popular in the mainstream at that time. And just the whole idea that it was controlled by like some corporation and just written by some old white guy or
Yeah.
something is just like, that's just such a devastating thing to think about. And I think, I don't know if you're going to agree with me on this, but this is just my interpretation of the scene. I don't think that any of this is real. I think that
Yeah, I
s-
agree.
this is sort of the peak of Sam's delusion
Yeah, going
paranoia.
off the deep end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he literally, I mean, at the end of the scene, he just kills the songwriter
Yeah.
through
And
literally
then
bashing his head in.
in the next scene, he's totally clean.
Yeah.
It doesn't really come back up
Yeah. No
ever
one's
again.
ever like questioning him about it.
Yeah,
So
but before we move on from the scene, it has a lot of really great dialogue
mhm,
as he's kind of mentioning his role in being behind all the pop
mhm,
culture hits.
yeah.
He says, "I find a used Kleenex, recycle it,
Mhm,
and there's your wedding song," which I think perfectly encapsulate
yeah.
how he feels about it and just
Mhm,
his total content with puppeteering
mhm.
pop culture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's also just representative of the idea that nothing is really real.
Yeah.
Everything is just manufactured for the sole purpose of money, control, power, all those things.
Yeah.
But,
He says, "I wrote it here somewhere between a blowjob and an omelet."
which is funny line and disrespectful in a very menacing way,
Oh,
because
yeah.
it just feels like there's nothing you can do. Like,
Yeah.
Sam is, like, almost, like, about to, like, break down because he's just like,
Serenading him.
yeah, he's being serenaded in the most, like, sort of disturbing way possible, where it feels like there's no control over
Yeah.
your entire life. Because earlier he had a Kurt Cobain poster
Mhm.
just to sort of show that I guess him as a child really was into Nirvana. I don't know if I thought I'm thinking about this like personally, like if I thought like if I like learned that my favorite band, like Radiohead, for example, was like created by some like a group of old white dudes and created for the purpose of controlling culture. Like that would, I don't know, that would just make me like
That would be
rethink my entire
glorious.
life. That would be a shit show. But yeah, that would just make me rethink my entire life. Maybe it's because music is so impactful to me, but like the sort of complex of feeling like these songs are special to you and they're like a part of your life.
Oh, yeah, totally. That would be the equivalent to me finding out that every single movie I loved was directed by, like,
One guy.
yeah, one guy. Let's try to think of someone who's funny, like M. Night. He's been a genius behind every single thing. He's been playing Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
One last thing before we move on. Sorry,
mhm,
again.
yeah.
He plays a very notable hit by the Pixies, "Where's My Mind?"
So, and you told me to think about what that means. I guess that sort of aided my conclusion that this isn't real because
Yeah.
of its use in Fight Club.
Yeah, another, I guess, kind of spoilers for Fight Club. It's a very similar narrative where it's a delusional main character
Yeah,
and there's
they're on a surreal journey
yeah.
of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is cool. Cool callback.
Yeah. So you can draw that same parallel to what's
You
happening
spelled
under the
Kirk.
silver lake.
You
Oh, I
spelled it
did.
with the C,
Um,
and then
he leaves the songwriter's mansion, gets
after
back to his apartment.
brutally killing him
Yeah, apparently.
with Kurt Cobain's guitar. Kurt Cobain with the C.
Yeah. This is where he learns that he has one day left to pay his rent before he's first forcibly removed.
Yeah.
And later, he notices a coyote. And before he was told by the homeless king that if he ever sees a coyote, he should follow it.
Mhm.
So he takes the advice, which leads him to, you guessed it, another house party hosted by a former ex-girlfriend that he has.
Yeah, and I think this sort of characterizes Sam in a completely new light
Mhm.
because it's his obsession with finding Sarah felt very unwarranted at the start,
Yeah.
but with the contextualization of him having lost, um, a partner, um, I think it's clear that his obsession with Sarah is more so filling that void
Yeah.
of, being broken up with rather than just a random creepy obsession. It still is a creepy obsession,
Mhm.
but it's explained, not justified, but explained with this scene. And that's also going back to something this movie likes to do is sort of plant these seeds
Mhm.
and expand on them later. And it plants these seeds that you wouldn't even like question why. But then when it has an actual explanation, it makes so much more sense.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that set up, and you don't know that they're gonna be called back to or fulfilled later.
Yeah. Because you don't see a reason why.
Yeah.
The movie doesn't reveal that immediately.
Yeah, holy shit, that just reminded me, we forgot to mention the best gag of the movie when his car is vandalized by some kids, and he beats them up, gets some gum on his fingers,
Yeah.
and then he has sticky fingers, wakes up, picks up a Spider-Man comic, and then
Oh,
kinda
yeah.
flips it off his hand, and I thought that was beautifully set up, 'cause you would never think, like,
Mhm.
"Oh, he has gum on his fingers, so he's sticky hand Spider-Man."
But, hey, they had to do it, Andrew Garfield.
Yeah. I thought that was awesome. I
I
love
thought the
that.
most awesome part was when he beats up those kids.
Oh, yeah.
Those kids were little shits.
Yeah, these little shits, like, keying cars, drawing penises.
Peeing on cars, like,
Yeah,
what is wrong with you?
yeah,
But that was hilarious because I did not think the movie I guess this because this was early in the movie,
yeah,
so the crazy sort of insane nature of the movie hadn't really revealed itself yet.
yeah,
So I didn't think he was just gonna straight up beat up those kids, but
yeah. So you really given a look at his insanity
oh, yeah,
and what he'll do.
just completely lost it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're at the house party with the ex.
Yes, and this is where he officially meets Millicent Sevens,
Mhm.
the daughter of that millionaire
Who died in the car
who
accident
yeah.
with Sarah and 2 other girls.
Yes.
And have a walk and talk, basically.
Yeah.
And I guess he sort of debriefs her on everything that he's discovered so
Mhm.
far about the mystery, because she's equally as skeptical about her
Yeah.
father's death. And
They encounter a homeless person
yeah.
who kind of harasses them and is, like, insulting them, and this is, like we mentioned, where Sam reveals his thoughts on homeless people
Mhm.
and basically says, like, "Oh, they're just ghosts floating around our city
Yeah.
watching us enjoy our lives."
And I think, she says something really, sort of interesting. She's
Yeah.
like, "Why don't you just give them $1?" Which I think perfectly calls out his sort of hypocritical nature, because I think his hate of the homeless is definitely him projecting his own feelings of worthlessness.
Oh, yeah.
So, because he himself feels like things should come to him, while at the same time criticizing the homeless people for being beggars and wanting things to come to them as well.
Yeah.
Even though the homeless are in a much more dire situation where they're sort of not able to escape from that.
Yeah.
Whereas Sam has all the opportunity in the world because he's not homeless. He has a place to live, obviously, and he has the ability to find the job, but instead he's been wasting his time like spying on women.
Yeah, he has some stability and access to that, he just doesn't wanna channel it into anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which kind of makes him worse than a homeless person
Yeah,
begging for
honestly.
money.
Again, the topic of the dog killer that is going around comes
Mhm.
back up,
Yeah.
and they kind of talk about it, and Sam's not really worried about this dog killer, but Millicent kinda says, "Oh, well, if they kill dogs, they wouldn't think twice about killing a human."
Yeah.
And Sam kinda just shrugs this off.
And I think it's this sort of interaction kind of shows how I guess women in general kind of have to face these issues
Yeah.
that men don't really have to think about.
Mhm.
Like walking around at night isn't something that a guy would really have to think twice about while she's the one being cautious. Rightfully so,
Yeah.
especially because there is this dog killer on the loose.
Yeah. On a whim, they decide to just go for a swim, and this is
Mhm,
where she reveals that she's being followed by an unknown man.
mhm, and she gives him her dad's bracelet that's labeled H6 to G4 and NPM1 35 to 37,
Yes.
which does not have any meaning yet. And then suddenly they're shot at, and Millicent is killed.
Yeah.
And very interestingly, she because they're both naked in the pool,
Mhm.
she recreates the pose that
Yeah.
of the magazine that Sam said was the first thing he ever masturbated to.
Yeah.
And to me, this sort of shows, I guess, the end of his self-indulgence and
Mhm.
his whole thing because, I mean, she's literally given him the last piece of the puzzle
Yeah.
for the mystery, and then, it's sorta calling back to the start of his self-indulgence whenever the first time he masturbated was, and I guess this is going ahead a bit forward, but I think this callback sort of reveals the themes of cycles in this movie, of
Mhm.
how this whole feeling of being in a rut and wanting to find purpose outside of yourself is just a cycle that everyone goes through and will continue to go through. Because, okay, you know what? Let's continue with the plot because
Yeah.
I don't want to go too far ahead.
At this point,
We'll
though,
come back to it.
do you think he killed her, or was this someone that was following her? Because I definitely think he killed her.
I have never even thought about that. But I think that I don't think he killed her.
You don't think he killed her?
I think it's plausible enough that some like this sort of society of elites would have the ability to just would have the ability and would do this to just kill her, just to keep her silenced.
Yeah, that's valid too, because this is yet another mystery box that isn't really elaborated on later.
Why do you think he killed her?
I think definitely because of the lack of elaboration later on,
Hmm.
and just the fact that she mirrors that pose kind of speaks to me.
True.
Yeah.
And I guess it would represent him sort of killing that part of his life too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it almost seems like he's breaking away from his sexual impulses.
Okay, maybe he did kill her.
Yeah, exactly. And, like,
Well,
anytime a murder kind of happens,
mhm.
or, like, what you could presume is a murder,
It's it's more so him killing a part of himself.
yeah, and it's never really touched upon
Yeah,
afterwards.
because the songwriter, he kills that paranoia,
Yeah,
and then with, the Millicent, he kills this sort of this consumption of, like, sexual desire.
yeah, because this is, I feel like, one of the only instances where he meets up with a girl and doesn't end up fucking her, maybe just because of circumstance,
Yeah,
but it's left open-ended.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, let's keep moving on.
Mhm,
He heads back home and he continues to decipher this code that is on this bracelet. And he realizes that the NPM1 stands for Nintendo Power Magazine,
mhm.
page 35 to 37,
Yep,
which is a map, I
and
believe from Legend of Zelda?
yeah, it was
Yeah.
so, I mean, this is already just, like, furthering the video game,
Yeah. It's
which
fully
the game
embracing
is yeah,
it.
it's fully embracing it now. And he takes out the map from the cereal box, right?
Yeah.
And he sort of places it over the Zelda map. And then he uses the H6 to G4 sort of,
Chess move.
yeah, chess move to find out where he needs to go and where he needs to start and then where he needs to go
Yeah.
there. And this is sort of the last part of this whole thing, really.
Yeah. The cereal box illuminates the locations.
Oh, and doesn't he get don't the landlord and a police officer this one happens, right? They come over because it's his last day,
Yeah.
and they come over and they tell him that he needs to get out, but then the police lady gives him one more day.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
Mhm.
That was a little bit before.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
I get what you're feeling though.
okay.
This is what this movie does to
Yeah,
you. It
because
puts you all over the
there's a
place.
lot going on in this movie,
Yeah,
so
I don't think if we haven't mentioned that before.
apologies if we're kinda all over the place with this, but
Yeah.
there's still a lot to talk about.
Yeah, so he searches up this location online and discovers there's no information or image available,
Yeah,
and this confuses him, so he decides to head there
himself.
himself. And in the middle of nowhere, in the mountain area, he finds a hut,
Mhm.
and this is where most of the secrets are revealed.
Yeah. He learns that everything that he's been suspecting is true.
Yeah.
It's all real. There's this guy and these 3 ladies that are just chilling there. I
Mhm.
think they're just, like, watching TV or something,
Yeah.
or, like, meditating out. They're doing some weird stuff. And he basically learns that it's a sort of organization with rich elites
Mhm.
where they get 3 women, and then they bunker down into these underground bunkers that Sam was in earlier,
Yeah.
and they just live out the rest of their life for 6 months before they transcend
Yeah, transcend
into
into
a greater existence or
yeah.
whatever. And I've okay, this is going back to what I was talking about earlier with cycles.
Yeah.
So what these guys are doing is basically what is very similar to what Sam's been doing. They're trying to find meaning in life. There's some ridiculous means. Sam with the conspiracy, and then these rich people with transcendental plane or whatever they're trying to go to. They're both in the same place, just trying to access the end goal through different means.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of like sort of like a really sad thought, but a very comforting thought that like all levels of society are sort of going through the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think with showing that these rich elites are also having these same feelings, it sort of shows that no matter like how rich you are, despite the fact that you have infinite opportunities to sort of find purpose in your life with everything you have,
Mhm.
that eventually you're going to just reach this point of feeling like you want to be more than what you are and feeling like you have no purpose and that you need to find it in some way. And I think that sort of shows this message that everyone sort of reaches this point eventually in their lives.
Yeah, there's this simultaneous human nature that's presented, and it's kinda showing you the 2 opposites of that same conundrum that, a lot of
Mhm.
people are gonna experience in their life where they're desperate for meaning
Yeah.
and they want the answer given to them.
And it's so weird how when he discovers what these ritualites are doing, it's not frightening and they're not even threatening to him at all.
Yeah.
Like they're very just calm, telling him exactly how it is. And because at the end of the day, like I guess it's kind of saying that we're all human, like we're
Mhm.
all looking for the same thing. There's no reason to be there's nothing scary about it.
Yeah.
Like at the end, there's nothing scary about this cult or whatever religious sort of thing that they have going on because they're at the end of the day trying to find purpose in their life, just like the rest of us.
Yeah. And I think that's really nice that
Mhm.
they show that parallel.
Mhm. Sam sort of learns that this was the reason why for the rich guy's death, that was the father of Millicent,
Mm.
and for Sarah's disappearance because they're also down in a bunker somewhere.
Yeah, he finally finds where she is.
Uh,
They go on, like, a basically FaceTime video,
yeah,
and he finally gets to talk to her again
yeah.
and tell her about this not explain all of it away, but just tell her, "I've been on this journey looking for you,"
Hmm.
and she, of course, is like, "But we only really met that time, and we don't know each other."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess like puts everything into like perspective for him. He's like, dang, I
Yeah.
really did all this for nothing, but not
Mhm.
really for nothing. Well, I guess for nothing now because she's gone,
Yeah.
like, forever. She's down in this bunker and can't really be, seen again,
Yeah.
but also for nothing because it was based off something that was so singular and
Mhm.
so insignificant. And, yeah, they sort of just have, like, I guess it's sort of like heart to heart
Yeah.
after everything they've both been through, I guess, and I thought this is a really beautiful moment.
Mhm.
It's very satisfying to see the conclusion to Sam's journey,
Mhm.
him having finally reached his goal, and what was it that she says about she has this one line that really stuck out to me, but I don't remember.
I know what you're saying. It's really sweet. She's like, "Well, I'm here, so I might as
Might
well
as well make the
enjoy."
best of it.
Yeah, I might as well make the best of it.
Yeah, and then Sam has his realization and says, "Yeah, I should be doing the same."
Yeah, and it feels like at this point, he's finally
He's learned.
learned and, like, taken all the lessons from his adventure.
Yeah, he's I guess this is what he needed to sort of escape from this rut that he's been in
Yeah.
for who knows how long in his life,
Mhm.
and that there's no real even if you find all the secrets, even if you solve all the mysteries, you're still you're still stuck in this world. So you're gonna either sit there and do nothing, or you're gonna make the best of it and make something of yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just thought that was like a really beautiful way to sort of present that message.
I'm glad you like that.
Yeah.
Because I really like that wrap up,
Mhm. Yeah.
and it would be a great place for the story to end.
Mhm.
But, um, they all drink some tea and they pass out,
Mhm.
and we're reintroduced to the homeless
Yeah.
king, who picks up Sam and kind of interrogates him.
He's tied up in shit.
Yeah, tied up in a chair, and when he wakes up, he questions him about why he's holding on to these dog treats,
Yeah.
and I think at this point, it's pretty obvious that this movie is hinting that Sam is the dog killer, and they're kind of saying it out loud.
Mhm.
It's never really fully revealed,
Yeah.
but I think this is the closest answer that you'll be given, and I think all the signs are there. What do you think?
I mean, it's impossible to say for sure
Yeah.
who actually is the dog killer, but I think it's very plausible to say that Sam is the dog killer. But at the same time, I also like the idea of the dog killer never being revealed, and it's sort of being just this like this force that exists that you never see actually take action, but it's a looming thing
Yeah.
that's sort of haunting the whole area of Los Angeles.
Yeah. And I'm not someone who's, like, too hung up on whether you get an answer or not.
Mhm.
Like, I just think it's kinda fun to
Yeah.
put it all into context.
Yeah. But yeah, Sam, he talks about that he had an ex-girlfriend, which
Mhm.
is the girl he met at that one party.
Yes.
Yeah. And he talks about how he just really he's only holding the dog treats because she had a dog and he's hoping that she'll come back.
Mhm.
It's some weird like mental thing that he has
Yeah.
about his heartbreak. That was also a really beautiful moment.
Yeah, I think
For
this
for once we see Sam sort of being human.
yeah.
Because a lot of the time throughout the movie, he's very I mean, he's not, like, neutral, but he's just reacting to everything, but we've never seen him really open up like this or be, like, truly, like, emotional like this, and for him to finally and we've also just been seeing him, like, run away from his problems this whole time,
Yeah.
so for him to finally, like, confront these issues and what's the root of all of his what do you call it? The root of his rut
Yeah.
he's been in, for him to finally confront that is also a really satisfying thing to see.
Yeah. Because whether you take this homeless king character literal or not,
Mhm.
it's this movie's way of, physically representing to the audience that he's confronting the homeless side
Yeah.
of himself and the side that sees him eventually becoming homeless as a
I
positive thing.
just I just had this thought that the homeless king may be representative of Sam himself
Yeah,
because
yeah,
he
very
is
much.
he is homeless, but he has the superiority complex above the homeless. So that would make him the homeless king.
Yeah, yeah, and he thrives in the area regardless of
Yeah.
the notion that he's homeless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's something I just thought of, but that's very fitting.
No, yeah, that's definitely on the right
Mhm.
track.
After this, he sorta just I mean, he's like, "Are you gonna kill me? Because I know it." But they're like, "Nope, you can go home."
Yep.
'Cause I mean, he won basically, like,
Mhm,
he, he beat the game, I guess,
mhm.
so we could say. And not in the way, I guess, the movie sort of felt like it was leading up because, I don't know, I guess the movie had this sort of mentality that like, "Oh, we're gonna take down the rich. We're gonna
Yeah.
destroy them because 'cause they're all evil." But then once it reveals that the rich are just as sad and pathetic as us,
Mhm.
it really recontextualizes, like, the whole movie's purpose.
Yeah, sympathizes.
Mhm.
You can sympathize more with them
Yeah,
because we've been looking in the eyes of
yeah.
Sam for so long.
Like, as much of an FU this movie is to, like,
The system.
Hollywood and, like, the system in general, it's also humanizing them in, like, a strange way.
Yeah. This entire movie has just felt like it's David Robert Mitchell saying one final "fuck you" to Hollywood. and
Yeah,
kinda leaving maybe his career behind, but it's not true. He's coming up with
yeah.
other movies.
I mean, this was his last. I mean, he hadn't made a movie for a while until now.
Yeah. If he went out with his career like this, on this note, that would've been fucking awesome.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway, though, Sam returns
Mhm,
to his mundane life. He kinda sits around, enjoys old movies and snacks.
mhm.
The famous saltines and orange juice combination that
Oh,
Sarah loves so much.
we didn't mention that, but that
Yeah.
is something that they bonded over,
Yeah.
during the only time they met.
But he decides to return to his old kinda ways.
Mhm,
Notices his neighbor again, who oh
mhm.
my god, we didn't mention his neighbor. His neighbor who has this parrot.
Okay, well, this neighbor is who he's mainly been spying on,
Yes.
and we've talked about Sam's tendencies at the start of this movie.
Mhm.
But yeah, she has this parrot that sort of just says gibberish.
Yeah, gibberish
Yeah.
that's never really elaborated on.
Mhm.
That's another mystery box, and she's always on her balcony with no shirt
Being
on,
topless.
breasts out,
Yeah.
and he decides, "You know what? I'm just gonna go over,
Have sex with
yeah, and
her.
have sex with her."
Yeah.
And they have sex, and he comes back out onto her balcony looking from the other side
Yeah.
into his apartment and sees that he's finally being evicted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is him just one more thing to show that he's finally not running away from everything he's not running away from his problems anymore because
Mhm.
he was gonna be evicted. He was a bum with no job. Like he did not have the means to sort of pay the rent. But him like begging for an extension and like telling his landlord, like, oh, I'll get the money soon is just like a lie to show that he's like just running away from that
Yeah.
inevitability that's coming to him.
Okay. Wait, so do you see this endpoint? Because he sees himself being evicted,
Yeah.
and I love this moment. It's, like, accompanied by a really triumphant theme.
Mhm.
I don't see this as, like, a happy ending for him.
What do you think this is?
Like, I see that as, like, a twist on, like, the hero's journey coming full circle, except he's returning to his roots,
Like in what way?
like, by deciding to fuck his neighbor, and then just kinda looking off blissfully into himself losing his apartment and being content with being thrown down that path.
I can definitely see that, but I don't know. For me, the apartment always felt like something that was enabling his tendencies because it was the last thing that kept him from actually being homeless.
Mhm.
And it was where he did a lot of his investigating for a conspiracy. So I think him losing that to me sort of seemed like him losing that part of himself that's gonna run away from things. He's gonna actually confront his problems
Mhm.
and face the reality of the fact that he's a bum with no job. But
Very interesting.
I do see what you mean by his decision to have sex with the neighbor.
Yeah,
But
because, his final conversation with Sarah, I kinda almost see that as him officially putting all of that down,
mhm.
and then that decision he makes at the end reverses that, like, kinda he goes back on that word,
Mm,
and this is him just finally fully accepting that this is who he is, and he's just gonna take it, you know?
it's puzzling to me because the I think that him having sex with the parrot lady is definitely throwing me off a bit. Oh, but the thing about what the parrot is saying and how that's like a mystery box sort of left open and how he kind of like sort of just ignores it and doesn't look into it anymore.
Yeah.
I think that also shows growth, optimism in a way that he's not so manic anymore and that he's not so paranoid. He's not gonna dive deep into this mystery of some sorts because he feels content with himself. So maybe I think maybe what the director's maybe trying to say is that like he's improved, but he's not perfect yet.
Yeah, for sure. But he's definitely regressing back to his tendencies. Because that mystery is just another one in a long line of mysteries that are never revealed or given like concrete answers to, like the owl's kiss. We have like a mention of the cult of the whales or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which is really small, but we have like the shooter.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of mysteries, and I
But
think that's tying into the theme.
okay, but I think that he sort of since he, like, he reached the end of his own personal journey, that he wouldn't that he would it would make sense for him to stop investigating all these things. So I think if he didn't reach this certain point of this own mental sort of battle having been won, if he didn't reach that point, he would definitely continue investigating into all those things
Yeah.
and have found everything. So I think that while it like his conversation with Sarah provides like a stopping point, I don't think it's I don't think it's representative of him having completely lost his old ways. Because realistically, like when you're on like a road to improvement, it's not like a complete 180 shift.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it's definitely like a step by step thing. So while he's not completely sort of given up on his sexual desire, he's still improved in other aspects, like facing his financial situation and facing and leaving behind his fanaticism over mysteries and that
Mhm.
kind of thing. That's
Ye
how I kind of see it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not saying that he's gonna go embark on another quest and he's gonna put together these mysteries. I'm just saying that all these open, like, thresholds play into the theme of the mysteries that we have in our life and
Mhm.
just kinda being content with knowing that there are things out there that we're never gonna solve.
Mm, right.
And while I can tell that Sam's learned a lot, he's not
Yeah.
completely there yet.
And he might never be there yet
Yeah.
because I mean, as you see with like the rich people who I guess I don't know, to me sort of represent like the very end of finding purpose in regular life
Mhm.
because they're rich, they have access to so many like different outlets for finding purpose
Yeah.
that maybe you'll always eventually reach that point of feeling meaningless and that like you could find more purpose in something else
Mhm.
beyond yourself. But hey, I guess that's a good place to leave off Sam's character though,
Yeah.
not really knowing where he'll go. 'Cause I guess I mean, that's just sorta how life is. You don't know you can only really think about the now and being in the best place you can be in your current moment, not really dwelling on the past or thinking about the future. Like, "Oh, am I gonna be in a sorta rut, in a sort of low point in a few months, or am I
Mhm.
gonna still be on this journey of be on this line of, like, self-improvement
Yeah.
and sort of living for the better?"
Yeah.
Like, you
Because
don't know that.
at the end of the day, it's about the journey that you went on.
Mhm.
It's about whether it was fun or not, because at the end of the day, you went on that journey, you learned some things, you might not have solved everything,
Yeah.
but you had a
Y
fun time.
yeah, and that's life.
Yeah, that's life itself. We just solve life.
Yep. This
And in its
movie solved
entirety.
life too.
This movie did kind of solve life, and it made me think about a lot of aspects
Mhm.
in my own life
Oh, yeah.
in ways that I wasn't really thinking about before.
And that's what I thought was so great about this movie. Don't even not even thinking about how great the story is or how great the technical aspects of the movie are. Just the way it sorta made me rethink about stuff in my life.
Mhm.
'Cause I don't know, sometimes when I'm in sort of a rut where I just don't have any motivation to better myself,
Mhm.
sometimes you get this, like, bad feeling that it's better and that you get this feeling that you're sort of enjoying just being sad and miserable
Yeah.
because there is some sort of, like, something to it that's, like, I guess, sorta, like, cool to be, like, edgy and miserable
Mhm.
and, like, hate life and everything, but then at the end of the day, like, that's not productive for anyone, and
Yeah, it's
that's
almost like ritualistic where it's like it becomes a part of your process.
and I feel like I go through those same cycles in my life too, where I'm in one phase where I hate everything, and I'm in another phase where I'm like, okay, I was being stupid then,
Uh-huh.
and I'll never be back to that. But eventually, you do get back to that because like stuff does happen in life that does make you reach that certain point. I think this movie sort of shows that like that sort of up and down journey
Yeah,
that life sort of provides.
because it all comes full circle,
Yeah,
and we're just gonna die anyway.
yeah.
I think that's a great place to
Wow.
leave off our very in-depth no, I'm just kidding. That was a very bad note, but we will end the discussion right now. I
Mhm.
thought that was
Before we get
great.
too personal and
Yeah.
existential.
Yeah, let's not dive into that area.
Yeah.
How about we give our ratings?
Okay.
You start.
Well, I give this movie 10 out of 10, 5 stars.
Oof.
I had 0 issues with it really at all, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's definitely one of my favorites of all time. And yeah, what about you?
Upon my first few watches, it was sitting at a very high 9,
Mhm.
but I think with this watch and a couple others,
Mm.
yeah, it's moved up to a 10 out of 10,
Yeah.
5 stars. This is the experience that I'm looking for in movies where I can think about it and it gets better on rewatches. There's more elements that I think about upon rewatch.
It'll stick with you too.
Yeah.
And I wanna mention the credit sequence of this movie I thought was really good too. It's a sort of like animated
Mhm.
this animated sequence of just like a lot of the things that were in the movie. And it really puts into perspective like how diverse the world of this movie is because you have all these like supernatural aspects. You have the different zany characters. You have Sam himself and the dogs and everything. I
Mhm.
thought it was a really good way to end the movie.
Yeah, really great song too.
Yeah.
Strange Currencies by REM.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect way to end it.
yeah, fits the vibe very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was our Under the Silver Lake discussion.
Hmm.
Next time, we'll be talking about kinds of kindness.
Yeah.
So we will catch you then.
See ya.
Later.